Oh, hello there, traveler. Nothing makes me happier than seeing a new face here at the gateway. Oh, you don't know what that is? Not to worry. A bit of disorientation is perfectly normal on your first extraplanar jaunt. So, tell me about yourself. You're not sure who you are? Hmm. Yes, that does tend to happen. No matter, the confusion will clear shortly. Here, take a seat. Can I get you something to drink? We have a little bit of everything here. While we wait for you to come back to yourself, why don't I tell you a story? How about the Arcadian DJ who discovered how to make four-dimensional sounds? Or perhaps I could tell you about the craftsman who made that very fine stool you're on? Comfy, isn't it? Or, oh, you want to know my story? Huh. It's been a while since I had a chance to tell my story. Be warned, it's a long one. The longest, in fact. You see, before all of this, before the gateway and before I looked this dashing, before television and electricity and neon, before the fracturing of the worlds and the birth of the dark sun, and before fire and earth and water and air, before your planet was even conceptualized, that was me. My name is Ziron, but back then I was simply Joy. I didn't know that's what I was, not at the beginning. I was what is called an aspect, one of the fundamental personifications that represents the basic laws of creation. Wordy, yes. Basically, I was an avatar of the emotion you might call joy. Back then, right at the beginning, before all things, I wasn't alone. I had. There's not really a word for it. I suppose a helpful analogy might be seven different sides to the same coin? Different, but connected. We played together in the reaches of space long before we developed into complex beings. From the start, there were seven of us aspects, and from those simple little orbs of emotion, all things would eventually be born. First, let me tell you about Cam. They were always the color of light pouring through leaves, a green that made everything else fade away around you. They traveled slowly through the space we called Wellspring, as all worlds would spill forth from that point. When we played games, they were patient and precise. Spending time with them made you think everything would turn out alright. Then there was anger. Oh, how fervently they burned. They would bring such energy and passion to all our games. Anger was the color crimson, like blood, like flame. When you were tired, they'd spark that little part of you into action and drive you forwards. They'd race through the vastness so quickly. But they had problems thinking ahead. Next, imagine love, the color of peach and just as sweet. We were quite alike, I suppose. Always full of enthusiasm for new things. Always there to remind us how much we loved our old games. They gave us time and attention. They were loyal, but always wanting more. I think they played a large part in our creations to come, and they so loved every animal and plant and mineral that we brought into existence. Hatred was a different thing altogether. Some confused them with anger, and yeah, there were similarities, much like with love and I. But hatred was a consumer. For every game we played, they would be there to finish them. When we started building worlds, they would inspire the hearts of our people to war. But yet, they were one of us. What was love without hatred? Without their strength, their upheaval, places would stagnate. Hatred inspired change. Not always for the better, mind. They were purple and would thrum and pulse with power. Back then, their cool fury confused me so much. But they weren't wrong. We could all be wicked things. Where was I? Void. Wasn't quite like the rest of us. It sat at the center of all things, not a color so much as the absence of color. What we created would eventually fall into it, to be consumed. That which is, one day, will be void. It is the nature of all things. Entropy. And then sadness, too. Sweet sadness. We were close, though I could never quite understand them. For all our games, all our creations, they were always so unjoyful. I would try and chase them through space, or show them all the beautiful things I could make, but it never seemed to cheer them up. I tried so hard. They were the most beautiful blue, like aquamarine, like teardrops. I still remember them right at the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Finally, there was me. I don't have any baby pictures, but imagine an orb of yellow gold light whisking through the vastness of space. Only this was a time before stars. The backdrop was darkness in all directions. Back then, I didn't have complex thoughts, but I was full of energy. Everything was exciting. Pure exhilaration flooded through me, pulsed into the darkness. So, yeah, that was us. The aspects. We were just children in the vast cosmic emptiness, inventing games to play with each other to pass the time. But the more we played, the more we interacted, the more complex we became. It's hard to describe, but think of a baby developing into an infant to a teenager and so on. We shaped each other and learned how to communicate. We began to dream. We didn't know it, but we were powerful beings. Our dreams sprang forth, strange and gelatinous things half-formed. Suddenly, we weren't alone. We would buzz around these landscapes, trying to impress each other by shaping things into existence, from hazy dream bubbles to solid structures. Soon, we were creating life. Many cultures have ideals of gods. Usually wise and powerful beings, demiurges shaping worlds and breathing life into animals and humans and watching over from some heaven above. We weren't so elegant. You ever make pancakes? The first one never comes out quite right. The first worlds were like that. We were simple beings. We didn't know better. We'd create whole planets only for them to be gobbled up by void or torched by anger. We'd make living creatures too placid because of calm or too spiteful because of hate. We saw nations drowned in ennui, too sad to clothe and feed themselves when sadness tried to create. Love and I, our people would starve to death making art or chasing butterflies. We began to realize we could not create alone, but had to share our powers. So came the next experiments. By now, we had something resembling concepts of self. I would work with anger to make creatures whose happiness and fury combined to make passionate zeal. Sadness and calm would create a drive to survive, to address basic needs. Love and hatred would make people strive for a better world, pushing against inequality. We'd watch how the worlds developed, stepping in to correct the course when it was needed, though we were still learning and sometimes our corrections got, well, messy. Death would claim someone and send them to void. The outpouring of grief would make sadness grow strong. As he grew, he started identifying as a man. Realized the sadder the worlds would grow, the more developed he would feel. Seeing the people of our world sad stung me in a way I could not quite describe. Like being cut, like feeling the blood rush out of you. I began to intervene more, spreading joy where I could. I'd hold festivals of music, create lavish feasts, anything to make people happy. The feeling was hitting me too. The need to be more than I was. It was addictive. The more joy felt by the people, the more I would feel like I was myself. My thoughts were more complex. I began to divide myself so I could be in many worlds at once. I was a fractal and shared the thoughts and feelings of every part of me. It was around this time things started to go wrong. We had all realized spreading emotion defined us, sharpened our edges. We were still creating worlds, more and more of them, planets of animals, of humans, of races alien to your understanding, multiverses with different rules, some full of magic, others monsters, others rich with natural elements to be exploited for technological growth. Have you ever played a video game? Or read a tome that describes a strange world beyond your own? There's a reasonable chance that is a real place. Somewhere out there. The echoes of it find their way to the creatives of your world. Like how light can travel through the vastness of space. Your world, too, is a story to others. I'm stalling. It's tricky to talk about this part. The other aspects and I would war for the hearts of the living species. We might appear as heroes, as gods, as strangers with tales to share. Anger would encourage inebriation, brothers turning on brothers and fighting over silly little matters. She would encourage the downtrodden to take back their futures from cruel kings, but also encourage treacherous monarchs to punish neighboring cities. Sadness might capitalize on the losses of war, but hatred would truly prosper in those times, reaping the benefits of nations turning against each other. Cam tried so hard to stop the conflicts, not just as an ambassador for peace with the mortals, but between us too. She would gather us in these worlds, reminding us what happened when the mortals died out because of our actions. She was right, of course, but at the time we knew she was growing stronger by cautioning us. It made it hard to trust her judgment. Love, he wanted peace too, in her own way, but the poetry that came from war and death, the longing for those poor souls sent off to battle, she would end up playing both sides, dividing further, going to war with himself. This became more common in those troubled days. We would fracture into different needs within ourselves, different facets of our natures battling for supremacy. Think of the joy you get from eating a cake versus the happiness from sharing it with others. That internal conflict, except if those parts of yourselves were godlike figures waging proxy wars and exploiting new civilizations to fight for them. Okay, maybe not the easiest metaphor to follow. I was the one who ruined everything. I want to say it was an accident. I didn't know what I was doing. But the worlds we made were in a sorry state. Populations were ruined, struggling for survival. I was growing so weak while the others grew strong. And I was... scared isn't the right word. It was something more innate than that. I knew I was dying, and if I didn't do something, I was going to end. It was instinctual. So I created something awful. The plague of smiles and laughter. I thought if I could do something to ease the suffering. No. It was more selfish than that. Sure, I thought there was nothing better than happiness. Isn't joy a wonderful thing after all? But I also wanted to feel more again. I began to spread a sort of infection. It would consume the worlds, taking all sentient beings and stimulating the pleasure centers of their brains. A pure flood of joy, endorphins, and dopamine, coursing through everything. It would stop people in their tracks, causing them to fall to the ground, writhing in happiness. It unmade them, stripping away their personalities, turning them into machines that simply exhibited the rapturous effects of pleasure. At the time, I thought it was a gift, something to end the conflicts and make people happy. I didn't realize what a cruel thing I had created. Not only had I turned our creation, our fickle, complex beings, into shuddering wrecks, incapable of the most basic functions, but I had thrown everything out of balance. Without living things to spread seeds, to tend plants, to fertilize the soil in their deaths, the natural world would begin to decay. And in the process, I had killed the other aspects as well. I found hatred first. They'd reverted into something that looked like they had way back when. A beautiful purple stone, like amethyst. I tried goading them, teasing them into action. No use. Something had left them. They were inert. I took hold of them, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I began to draw them inwards. Soon I was flooded with this unbridled hate. I hated them for dying, leaving everything colder without them. I hated the mortals who were the cause of all this suffering. Things had been so much easier when it was just us in the universe. Mostly, though, I hated myself for what I had done. It was a strange feeling, knowing nothing but joy my whole existence. Then suddenly, I was defined by something so sharp and harsh and clarifying. I knew my journey was not over. I traveled through the stars, passing ruined worlds in search of the others. I found calm in a grove of shady trees, in a planet once rife with beautiful forests. Now it stood barren, save the grove springing from the remains of Cam. The negotiator, always level-headed and fair, was now nothing but a deep green emerald. I took her into my form and felt the steely determination roll through me. The hatred in me tempered. My shaking eased. I stood in that tranquil clearing, breathing in the scent of soil and exhaling some of the hate I held inside me. I hoped that, at the end, she was comforted by the beauty around her. She deserved that much. Anger was next. Defiant to the last, her core fought and tore at me as I absorbed it into myself. I could always feel her, just under the surface, thrashing and writhing like a fish on a hook. Feeling that fury eclipsed everything at first. I screamed and tore at the earth, feeling the world I was on shatter beneath my fists. How had she managed to remain coherent with this much wrath? I thought about shattering all of creation in that moment, finding a way to tear myself to shreds as penance for what I had done. But there were more out there. More I owed this pilgrimage to. I came to Void. Void had never quite left its infancy. It always remained unchanging. Or perhaps it devoured itself as quickly as it changed. I was not sure if it was inert in the same way as the others, but it quickly became part of me, just as quickly. Like a black hole right at the center of me. It provided balance, stopping me from pulling myself too far in any direction. I was becoming muddled, confused by all the new emotions inside me. And oh, the hunger, an insatiable need to consume. I realized my desire to grow had been far closer to Void than I had ever realized. Love, that beautiful thing. He was the hardest to track down, having split herself so many times, from galleries of art to run-down old farmhouses with walls hung heavy with picture frames. I pieced together the story they had left behind in all the forgotten little places where love had bloomed. She saved me, whether or not it knew it. The slow pilgrimage to gather her remains reminded me of something I had forgotten in the heat of things. Just because these mortals' lives were short, fragile little things didn't make them meaningless. There was so much joy to be found in those lives, such intricate tapestries of emotion. We had thought all along that these creatures were our playthings, first for our entertainment, then to give us strength. But we had mixed it up. You see, our job, our duty, was to spread life as far as we could in all its complexities. As I became the bearer of the aspect's bodies, I grew to understand this, the love filling me till I couldn't bear it. We had lost so much beauty was gone because of me. I felt the impotent emotions warring inside me as I looked for the final of us aspects. I was surprised then when I found Sadness still alive. I found his last form in a crystalline lake, our reflections fractal across its surface, columns of ice sending our Earthsart images across the landscape. Joy? He whispered, tears filling those huge doe eyes. I couldn't bear it when he cried. You're here. For a moment, I felt the fury flare inside me. How dare he look at me like that? Was he chastising me? Afraid of me? Yes, I'm here, Sadness. My voice felt alien. It had been so long since I had spoken to one of the others. But more than that, I had changed so much. Except, I don't think I can call myself Joy anymore. The others, they're all gone then? He choked a sob. The tears that fell frosted his cheeks in the cool rime. Tears turned to ice. I didn't mean to, I cried. His admonishment was so much sharper than the hatred I already bore for what I had done. I did what I had to. I was dying, Sadness. It was up to them. No. I breathed slowly, feeling calm spreading. I messed up, but I've taken the others into myself. I am all of them now. I came for you too, but you're still alive. We can do something. We can make new, sad people. You can grow strong again, and then I won't be alone. But he could not stop crying, fists balling in the snow like a helpless child. Love was burning in me. I wanted to help him. I wanted to take away that sadness, that useless emotion that was hurting the one I loved. He shook his head. No, it's too late for me. Besides, I couldn't bear to be without the others. So you're giving up? You're gonna leave me alone in this cold universe? But he was already gone. As I looked down at his figure, so cold and small, he began to collapse back into the shiny blue aspect I had known so long ago. And I took him with me, but not like the others. No, the others had become part of me, before I knew what that meant. Sadness deserved better than that. Besides, if I had that much sadness in me, I thought I wouldn't get anything done. Silly, useless emotion makes weak little things of those it infects. I never understood the appeal. Not back then. So I carried him with me, thinking perhaps there was a way to restore him to who he once was. That if I kept his crystalline form separate from whatever thing I was becoming, there might be an opportunity to see him in a kinder world than this. I kept him separate because I was scared of feeling all that sadness, of being crushed by it. I vowed I would look after him, just as now I have vowed to look after all of you. Whether that is bringing happiness to those who need it most, or simply fostering the environments for the other emotions to flourish. I may not be able to call myself Joy any longer, but now I am Ziron, something larger than the sum of my parts. I have fought to protect worlds from tyrannical empires. I have helped those with small voices, and throughout it all, I have curated the Gateway. Where you are now. A magical pub. A nexus that connects all the worlds. A safe place for all who cross its threshold. A home to a magical jukebox. A light in the darkness. Some pass through here frequently, with purpose, knowing where they're headed. Sometimes dreamers wander these halls. Sometimes, just sometimes, someone finds a little artifact of mine and finds themselves where you are now. There's more to my story, of course, much more, but I think that's all the time we have for tonight. Talking about the past has drained me, and I need some time to recover. Now, let me get you a drink. What would you like? I have the finest wines, vintages from fallen empires. I have coffee grown at the highest peaks, fermented and dried and roasted to the perfect temperature. I have the heart of dying stars, bottled and ready for consumption. What's that? Coca-Cola. Actually, we've just run out. Is Pepsi okay?